like to begin the hybrid conference titled Responding to the Dynamic Changes in the World of Work in Asia Now. This conference is part of the program on the last day of the CSAT Youth Camp and was jointly organized by Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung Japan and Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation. Collaboration between KAS Japan and TAEF began with a series of webinars on the theme The Future of Work in 2020 and 21. KAS and TAEF co-organized an online conference also in 2022 as well. This year, we are very grateful to be able to have this conference not only online, but also in person, in a physical form with live participants here. I hope you will have a stimulating discussion during and even after the conference. To formally open the conference, I would like to ask Dr. Shin Huang Michael Shao and Ms. Rabea Brauer to give us the opening remarks. If I may, I would like to invite Dr. Shin Huang Michael Shao, the chairperson of the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation and the senior advisor to the president, to the stage first. Dr. Shao.
Sorry first for being late. Director Brauer, Executive Director Yang, distinguished speakers, CISA's Youth Camp participants, and online audience. And first of all, also good luck in surviving the typhoon in Taiwan. And our heart goes to the people in Philippines, especially in Luzon, in the Philippines, whose life has been seriously affected by the same typhoon. As I said the other day, either comes to Taiwan or goes to Philippines. This time goes to Philippines. Good morning. On behalf of the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, I once again would like to welcome you all to join the conference of the future of work for Asian youth this morning. The Future of Work Asian Youth Conference, as Sakura-san said, is a series jointly organized by KAS and TAEF began in 2020. In the past 3 years, we have completed 4 online seminars and conferences that investigated young people's work and educational landscapes in Taiwan, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam under the impact of COVID-19. Today, while keeping the online format intact, we are pleased to welcome the first physical Future of Work conference in the post-pandemic time. In this milestone moment, we are bringing the discussion to a general Asian level under the theme of responding to the dynamic changes in the world of work in Asia in the post-pandemic era. As we know, Asia is a very diverse environment. It is difficult to paint a one-size-fits-all picture of the future of youth work that can be applicable to each and every country. Thankfully, we have a group of diverse participants sitting this morning and also online with different observation and experiences. First of all, we have the young delegates of the TAEF CISA's Youth Camp, who come from 10 countries, including the Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Cambodia, Australia, Japan, and the US, and Hong Kong, China, and Taiwan, of course. In addition, we have participants jointly online as well as in person from South Asia and European countries such as Germany, Spain, Myanmar, Peru, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. All of you can share how your country's young people who have been affected negatively by the pandemic hit, and how your country government's effort to respond to the youth unemployment situations and crisis. In addition, we have invited distinguished panelists sitting in first floor from government, academia, and civil society. They will present the major views that can impact young people's work issues and prospects through employment policies, education and training issues, training programs, and social security policies. And we hope with all the participants' input, online audience observations, and our panelists' keen observations, we can really, in the end of this morning, we can generate a line of policy advocacies that can present it to each one of the countries in the areas concerned. Dear participants, and that is the goal of the TAEF, which we wanted to share Taiwan's experiences and our views with the new southbound policy countries. Dear participants and experts, let us work together to ensure the rising generation in Asia can embrace the opportunity and challenges in the changing job situation in the post-pandemic era for a positive and better future. I wish you all enjoy the conference and benefit from it. So thank you very much and enjoy it.
Thank you, Dr. Xiao, for your opening remarks. Now I would like to invite Ms. Rabea Brauer, the country representative Japan, as well as the director of the Regional Economic Program Asia of Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung Japan.
So, thank you very much, Sakuya-san, for your warm words. It's an honor to address you once again. I'm looking into very relaxed faces. How are you on day number 3? According to the noise level outside and the chatter boxes, I can hear and feel that you have bonded and formed the networks that we wanted you to form. So here again, I like to thank our sister organization, TAEF, for organizing this and more so including us. It's really a pleasure to be present in your youth camp with our special panel on the future of work. You are all concerned. I said this in my remarks before, and so are we as mothers, as sisters, as families, and we want not only the Asian youth to thrive, but also the global youth. And this is why, allow me a few words on advertising, because I didn't do this last time. The KAS, the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation, has 120 offices around the world. Look up our brochure outside. And we are working with NGOs, with youth programs, we're working with governments, with parliaments. We are also working in your countries. So if you haven't touched base with the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation in your country, please do so, because we are offering exchange programs, scholarships, study tours. We are working with youth organizations. We want to expand that work because you are the future of all of us, I have to say. So Chris will do the moderation today. I'm very thankful she took over this task, so she will elaborate more on the regional economic program where this future of work tier is stemming from. We're also looking at economic empowerment of women, and we're also looking, of course, at the lifeline trade subject. So please do touch base. We would love to continue our cooperation with you and be a pillar of your network. And thank you very much, Chairman Chow, for including us and for your wonderful introductory remarks. I have nothing more to add, but of course to wish you a wonderful session, and let's stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brower, for the very encouraging opening speeches. Now we move on to our keynote speech. For the keynote speech, we are grateful that we can welcome Mr. Xuan Ren Yu in the hall today. Mr. Yu has worked for the Workforce Development Agency, Ministry of Labor, for more than 20 years. Now he is a senior technical specialist at the Employment Service Division. He completed his doctorate at the Department of Mechanical Engineering, the National Taiwan University of Science and Technology. In addition, he gained a master's degree in law at Soochow University, Taiwan. Mr. Yu, thank you very much for joining us today. I will hand the microphone to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to present here today. I'm currently working in the Employment Service Division of the Workforce Development Agency as a senior specialist. Our agency is responsible for the vocational training, skills certification, employment services, entrepreneurial assistance, skill competitions, and employment permit and management of migrant workers. It's a Level 3 unit under the Ministry of Labor. Today, I would like to give you a brief report on Taiwan's current situation and the future planning in youth employment. As you can see, this presentation is divided into 3 parts. It includes the current employment situation of Taiwan youth, the government's employment assistance measures, and finally, the prospect of youth employment in the future. Firstly, I would like to explain to you the current status of youth employment in Taiwan. According to the latest statistics, the labor participation rate of young people in Taiwan is 58.1%, which is lower than the overall, but it has a tendency to increase year by year. The main reason is that most of young people in Taiwan between the ages of 15 to 29 are still in school or have just graduated from universities or master programs. Also, because of the extended years of education, the time of young people to enter the workplace is delayed. Besides, similar to the other countries, Taiwan's youth unemployment rate is higher than the overall. In 2022, the youth unemployment rate of 8.38 is higher than the overall, but the youth unemployment rate is the lowest since 2009. Youth unemployment is not only affected by the external job market environment, but also in terms of personal factors. As shown in this chart, the main challenges faced by the Taiwanese youth in employment are, firstly, a lack of experience, secondary, uncertainty about suitable job options, and thirdly, lack of skills. To help solve the problem of youth not knowing what to do and prepare them for employment, we have invested a lot of resources in career guidance. In junior and senior high school and university, we began to provide career counseling services on campus. In addition, The youth salon and the employment service station provide physical consulting service and also provided online employment consulting. The online platform enables young people to more conveniently use live, real-time, online career consulting service and group consulting lectures. Government services are based on an assisting role, and young people themselves should actively face challenges and strive to improve their abilities. We offer a wide range of vocational training for young people in and out of school. Firstly, in order to narrow the learning gap, we cooperate with the Ministry of Education and schools to help students enter the industry in advance and provide work practice. Secondly, many young people who have left school still have the problem about weak employability. So enterprises are encouraged to provide training and job opportunities. In addition, according to the trend of national key industries, we provide skill training to help young people improve their work skills. Further, we provide both physical and online employment service for job seeking. Currently, there are more than 300 public employment services based in Taiwan. They can provide youth consulting service and employment assistance service nearby. We also established the Taiwan Jobs online website and cooperated with the private job bank and convenience stores to provide convenient job information services. In order to actively promote youth employment according to the different needs of young people, we promote regular allowance programs. It includes allowance of labor shortage, cross-domain employment allowance, and a career evaluation program for youth. Due to the pandemic, the job market is impacted. From 2020 to 2022, we promoted 4 programs to assist young youth in finding employment. More than 230,000 young graduates have received subsidies, and more than 90,000 young people have participated in training. The purpose of these 4 programs are to provide financial support for the fresh graduates when they are looking for a job, to encourage stable employment, to subsidize graduate participation in skill training courses to enhance their capabilities, and to provide workplace training. In recent years, the pandemic has accelerated the digital transformation of industries. At the same time, with the international emphasis on circular economy and green energy, the industry chain and related talents have been driven. Therefore, in the future, we will continue to cultivate young people's cross-field work skills and guide willing young people to engage in the key industries. Assisting youth employment requires the joint efforts to different ministries. From 2019 to 2022, via interministerial cooperation, we promoted a 4-year youth employment program. That program promotes 48 measures from 4 aspects, that is, industrial change, career planning, skills development, and employment services. According to a different employment needs of young people, differentiated service measures are provided. There are 5 types of youth in school looking for a job for the first time, unemployed for more than 6 months, on a job and atypical employment. Starting in 2023, 11 ministries will continue to promote the second stage of the 4-year Youth Employment Investment Program. Its 5 objectives include setting the direction, increasing talents, promoting employment, fighting for good salary, and transition to the full-time employment. Finally, I would like to share with you that with the change in industrial change, the future job market will continue to change and bring more opportunity and challenges. The government will continue to create an environment that is more conducive for the young people. We will help young people to improve their job skills in different fields and guide them to employment in key industries. Besides, we will help them to create more job opportunities for themselves and conditions for higher wages. Right, that's all I'd like to mention. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Yu, for outlining the challenges that the youth face and also the government responses that other countries might be able to learn from. On the opportunities and challenges that the Asian youth have, we will elaborate on these in the next panel discussion. I would like to introduce our moderator, Ms. Chris Perez. Ms. Perez is the Senior Program Manager of the Regional Economic Program Asia, KAS Japan.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our discussion on responding to the dynamic changes in the world of work in Asia. So I am Chris Perez from the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung's Regional Economic Program Asia. So at SOPAS, we work on monitoring the developments in international trade and multilateralism. We also look at issues involving women empowerment and advancing them in leadership positions. And together with TAEF, we are looking at how the future of work will impact us all. So for this panel, we will examine the challenges that young people face in employment and education. We will also discuss practices and skills building and, of course, early career management for future-proof jobs and careers. And lastly, look at an outline or a set of policy recommendations which can effectively respond to the dynamic changes happening in the workplace, the labor market, and society at large. So we have the pleasure of having 3 experts with us that will share their insights on the fast-paced developments in the world of work. So first up, joining us very early morning in Italy, we are joined online by Dr. Riccardo Corrado. So Riccardo is an assistant professor and the chairperson for the ICT program at the American University of Phnom Penh. He is also an advisor to the Cambodian Ministry of Post and Telecommunications and a member of the board of directors of the Italian-Cambodian Business Association. So Riccardo has a very international education. He received his PhD in electronics, telecommunications, and information engineering from the University of Trieste, Italy, his master's degree in education from the University of Johannesburg, South Africa, and an MBA from Abertay University, the UK. So besides his positions, Riccardo serves as a senior research fellow in the Cambodian think tank Asian Vision Institute. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome online Dr. Ricardo Corrado.
Good morning everyone.
Good morning, Ricardo. So next up, we have here with us Dr. Upalat Korwatanasakul. So Upalat is an international development economist interested in economic, environmental, and social development topics in Asia and the Pacific, such as climate change, the digital economy, global value chains, informal economy, labor market, and sustainable development. So he has worked and had research collaborations with major international organizations and research institutes such as the Asian Development Bank Institute, or ADBI, the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia, based in Jakarta, IRIA, and specialized agencies and programs of the United Nations. So he holds a PhD in international studies, majoring in development economic analysis from the Graduate School of Asia Pacific Studies, Waseda University in Tokyo. So ladies and gentlemen, to my right, Dr. Upalat Korwatanasakul. Last but definitely not the least, we are joined by Mr. Adler Young. So Adler is the founding director of the Awakening Cooperative Lab, a think and do tank aiming to research and design for and actualize regenerative and harmonious societies with compassion and critical complex systems awareness. So some original concepts that are researched at the Awakening Lab include allocation dependence and learning by caring. So the lab has also supported marginalized youths to become award-winning, impactful, and compassionate leaders of their generation. So Adler has also directed the research and development for ZaShare, Taiwan's largest educational experimentation and innovation platform to develop programs and policy proposals for fostering progressive and equitable education ecosystems. And he has also pioneered the experimental higher education movement in Taiwan. Adler is also a documentary filmmaker. So he completed a film, If There Is a Reason to Study, in 2016. And that film has won awards internationally, influenced education movements in Taiwan, and was lauded as the epitome of 2016 Taiwanese movies and most important film on Taiwanese education. So he has consulted for the National Chung Kung University, Ministry of Education and National Development Council Taiwan, a Diversity and Innovators Fellowship in Hong Kong, the Japan Society of Synthetic Anthropology, Alternative Education Research Organization in the US, and of course, Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung, sharing political and civic engagement spaces, Asia Pacific and Germany. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Adler Young. So let's get right to it. Let's look at the broader picture first. So I'd like to ask Upalat to sketch out for us the economic, health, and geopolitical trends in Southeast Asia and East Asia in general that are heavily impacting jobs and skills. So Upalat, what do you think are the key drivers of the transformation of work in the next 5 years?
Okay, thank you very much, Chris, for the question. And I think this is a very good question to begin this session because it kind of lay the foundation of our discussions today. So the question is quite broad, so I would like to digest the question to 3 main topics. So one is about the health, because we all experienced this like COVID-19 for this past 2 or 3 years, right? So I think everyone has this like fresh memory or fresh first-hand experience on this. So I would like to talk about this first, and then we will follow up with the geopolitical tensions between the US and China, and also the ongoing Ukraine crisis. So I will talk a little bit briefly about my work about the Ukraine industrial analysis as well, because I just got this like consultant position at the UNIDO. So we try to do the analysis on the industry level to help Ukraine to move forward like after the post-war. And Then at the end, I will link this health and also geopolitical tensions to the economic situations now today. And we can link to you, which is the youth, like how can we prepare yourself in order to tackle with the issues, like ongoing issues in the society and also our current economy. Okay, so let me begin with the health. And the backlash of this COVID-19. So as everyone knows, this like COVID-19 pandemic was the largest global, create the largest global economic crisis, and economic activities had stopped like for maybe at least like 6 months, and then we tried to gain like the momentum back, like try to resume all these like supply chain disruptions, and particularly like the service sector was the most impact because. At that time, as everyone knows, we could not really move, right? We have to stay home because of this, self-quarantine, or we cannot even move across the border because, like, we have to really strict, control this pandemic. So that's why the service sector, like hotel industry or like restaurants, they are the sector that got hit hardest by this pandemic. And too bad because this sector is hosting the majority of the economically disadvantaged groups. So as you can see, most of the waiter, waitress, they are really vulnerable to this pandemic because they have to live day by day. They earn hourly wage, not the monthly wage, professors or government officers. So that's why they're really vulnerable to this pandemic. And we also could saw this disruption of the supply chains, right? Because every economic activity literally was stopped by this pandemic. And then because of this, we see the lesser aggregate demand of the consumer. So we see the less consumption from our sector, private sector, and also yourself, because everyone wants to save. No one wants to spend because we don't know about our future, what will be happen in the next 6 months or even 1 year, 2 years, because this pandemic is very new to us. We never imagined that this kind of pandemic will happen, just by the spread of the virus, from certain area and then to the global level. So we was not really prepared for this, so that's why everyone were in the uncertainty. And then because of this, we saw the drop in the investment because of the less consumption and less demand. And this can influence to the labor market, right? Because when we have less demand, of course, then producers, they cannot bear any further costs anymore, so they have to fire some of their employees, or they cannot really accept the new employees into the system or into the labor market, which is you, right? Youth, because you are the transition period from the education sector to the labor market. So that's why we were saying that youth also was considered as one of the vulnerable groups because you are the lost generation. You could not really learn at that time because you have to stay home. You didn't have interaction with your friends. You didn't have interactions with your professors. You could not go abroad, study. You don't have a chance to come together, to sit here, to exchange your opinions and to learn from each other. And that's 2 years is something, right? It's really serious for the young generation. And it's not only for us, right? It's for you that you lost opportunity to learn. And of course, some of you were in the last year of your education, and it's very important transition period that you have to transfer from the education sector to the labor market. And this can, of course, link to your future unemployment, because if you cannot really find your first job, or the job that you want to work on, then you cannot really have a good on-the-job training program. And this is where you learned to smoothly transfer from the education sector to the labor market. Because I think everyone noticed that there is a very big gap between what we learned in the classroom and what we really have to use in the labor market or in the private sector. I think this is the very challenging issue that we still have to solve. Like not only in the developing countries, but in developed countries, they also experience the same issue as well. So this is just part of the story about the backlash of the COVID-19, and it's quite long already. So I would like to jump quickly to the second issue, which is the geopolitical. One is from the US-China tensions, right? So this happened even before the COVID-19. So we saw this tension between the two powers from the US and then from China. And then we saw the trade war, which had some implications on the global value chains. Okay, I have 3 minutes. Okay, and some implication on the global value chains and investment flows. So we can see that some of the investors, like from the Western and then from Japan, South Korea, they try to move away from China because they kind of like side with the US. And then we see that they move the production plant to the Southeast Asia. So of course, like any event has some pros and cons. So there are some opportunities for you, like especially for those who live in Southeast Asia, to get jobs in this manufacturing sector that move away from China. But again, we have to really think about the future, because this, these two powers are very sensitive, and then we are not sure that who should we side with, or how can we act as a neutral actor like in this era. And on top of that, we have this like ongoing Ukraine crisis, which no one really imagined that would happen. And this can add in like the more like complicated situation to the ongoing like economy, because we can see that like agriculture sector, construction sector, and also automobile industry in Europe, in Middle East and Africa got affected a lot. So they have the food security issues, and then they have the problem of the shortage of the critical minerals. And this can lead to the global recession and can be linked back to our region as well as East and Southeast Asia, because we produce a lot of automobiles, we produce a lot of electronics and electrical goods. So that's why we really have to concern about this issue as well. So now you can see that like both health issue and geopolitical tensions can have direct impact on the economic situation. So indeed, globalization makes our world economically, socially, culturally prosperous, but again, it also makes us systematically vulnerable to external shocks. But how can we respond, or how can we be ready for that? So my last word is that I give you 3 keywords here. One is vulnerability, second one is uncertainty, and the third one is resilience. And in this session, we're going to talk about these 3 keywords and how can you as youth should prepare for the future labor market in the next 5 years or 10 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Upalot. So that's quite a lot, isn't it? Vulnerability, uncertainty amidst a background of slowing economic developments, supply chain disruptions, less consumption, less investment, geopolitical tensions among 2 of the world's largest powers. Then you have industrial implications of the war in Ukraine. So how will the youth respond to that, Adler? How do you see yourself working amidst that background, amidst those macro trends, and what are the things that really matter to you when it comes to learning and working?
Thanks, Chris and Aplet. Actually, I just told Chris that I'll be a little bit out of the box. After reading all of your, glancing through, I can't remember the details, but after glancing through your profiles, I see that all of you are aspiring leaders, and I like to play some kind of devil's advocate or provocateur in a sense that complements their expertise, more philosophical. So throughout my experience in life, there is a quote that affected me a lot from Einstein, attributed to Einstein, which is that we cannot solve the problems by the same level of consciousness that created them. So when we look at employment or the technological challenges, to step backward, if we look at the historical breakthroughs of major technology, we can see that there is always anxieties and struggles of people's lives. And why is there such constant anxiety and struggles? I think my research with philosopher Mi Jianguo at Suzhou University might shed light to this question. So our research is about the relationship between universe, world, and metaverse. And we see that through this relationship, we can see a perennial predicament of humans, in the sense that to protect our world against the universe, which may be the natural environments or conditions independent of human intentions, we create systems of artificial things to protect and make our lives live easier. However, these systems eventually grow their autonomy and become increasingly independent from human control. So, and we call this artificial yet independent time-space metaverse. So the human predicament is that right now human survival doesn't only depend on our coping or our adaptation to the challenges posed by the universe, but also by the metaverse. So in a sense, we're like a sandwich being squeezed by two dimensions of verses. So this also highlights or shows that why there is such increasing anxiety or struggle that we have to face, because the struggle is no longer only natural, but also a lot of the challenges are artificial. So as future leaders, I think when most people are trying to cope with the upcoming challenges, I think the questions that you have in mind may be that how should we lead given these challenges? So do we accept that the systems of artificial things, for example, not only AI, but also IoT or code of law and more interrelated technologies? So do we accept that they grow independence from human control and accept that is our task to cope with their pressures? And if that's the case, then Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, might be true. What he said might be true, in the sense that we might just be an intermediary species in the evolution of intelligence. But the beauty and difficulty of being human is that we have agency. So whether we tread upon such a path is a matter of our collective decision. So as future leaders, to what extent? We can ask the question that to what extent do we want to depend our lives upon artificial things? Or the question that, is artificiality always our default approach to the problems or challenges that we face? And by closing my first comment, I would like to provide an example for us to all contemplate. I believe that most of you trying to make a change or make an impact in the world will be familiar with Gandhi's motto that be the change that you want to see in the world. But probably many of the people who know this motto does not know his stance on technology. So throughout his life, he has been fighting against structural domination and exploitation from the North or developed countries and the elite. So, and such a lot of discourse on this is layer called dependence theory. And against that, he advocated for what is called appropriate technology. By saying appropriate technology, it means that the underlying workings, basically the design of and the access are not, and instead of just the final product of technology, should be accessible to all. So in this way, the poor doesn't depend on the rich. The rural doesn't depend on the municipal. and the so-called developing world doesn't depend on the developed world. I hope such comment can provide some food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Adler. You did warn me that you are going to give out of the box answers to the questions that I sent you in advance, but I wasn't prepared to face such existential questions so early in the morning. I was not prepared for that comment on this short discussion, this short discussion in the interface between what makes us human and how we deal with artificial things, with technology, with AI and all of these things. But personally, I'm more comfortable with data and I'm more comfortable with looking at economic trends. But yes, your comment on what makes us human and how this interfaces with historical breakthroughs, it's quite interesting. But let me redirect the discussion back to technology and macro trends that are driving job creation and job destruction. So last May, the World Economic Forum released the Future of Jobs Report 2023. So in that report, it estimated that in the next 5 years, 83 million jobs will be lost and 69 million jobs are projected to be created. So this makes a reduction in the employment of about 14 million jobs. There will be significant structural changes on how workers and jobs are reallocated in the labor market. Now, let's take a look at how developing countries with large and young populations are preparing for the future of work, given these economic, health, and geopolitical trends in the region. So I'd like to direct your attention to Cambodia. The report came at a time that Cambodia is undergoing a massive reskilling and upskilling effort that included special initiatives to train 1.5 million youth from poor families in emerging jobs. So I'd like to ask Ricardo, can you tell us how Cambodia is preparing its youth for a new future of work? Can you tell us more about the country's readiness for adaptation and adoption of what it calls as Industry 4.0? And what is the outlook for the young Cambodian workforce? Ricardo?
Okay, that's actually a very good question. So first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm talking from Italy today because I have been back to my own country for the summer break. So here it's very early in the morning. If I say something stupid, it's not me, it's because it's early. So in general, I would like also to make a premise, which I believe it's very important whenever we talk about youth solution that the government is trying to implement and different ecosystem. Cambodia and what Cambodia is doing and what I may say in these 10 minutes may be not completely applicable to other ecosystems. Okay, that's very important to start with this idea. Sometimes, when we hear speakers and they talk about the problems of their ecosystem and the solution that they are implementing or they are planning, we tend to think that, okay, that can be taken from there and implemented also in my own ecosystem. And that's an initial mistake because culturally, Cambodia may be very different from other countries. Financially speaking, economically speaking, and the current situation, the past may be very different. So that's a very important starting point that I want to make before going on with the conversation. With this said, yes, you are completely right. Cambodia has been developing very fast, economically speaking, in the past 10, 15 years. Many things have been done by the government and many initiatives have been started. some effective, some less effective, but I think that that's normal, and it's a process of trying, doing, planning, and continuing in this process, learning from the mistakes, learning from the experience, and mostly adapting into an ecosystem that is in constant change. So this is also an aspect that we need to keep in consideration. The job market, the demand, mostly nowadays with the pervasiveness of IT application in business context and also in government context, it's something that makes things difficult. In the past, things were changing relatively slow. Now they are changing fast, and just look how the situation have changed and have moved faster, so fast, just with the latest advancement of AI. AI is not a new thing. Researchers have been worked on it in the past 40, 50 years. It's not new, but it has been brought to the attention of the general public, and that have generated kind of a hype around it, and now everyone talk about AI. But in general, I will not spend, because I don't have the time, and I think I will bore you, because usually when we talk about what government do across the world, we tend to bore people. But Cambodia have done a lot of initiative, a lot of frameworks, a lot of policies, mainly from the perspective of education, from the perspective of economic. Ministry of Economic and Finance, development of small, medium enterprises, financial sector, and digital payments, and also from the perspective of telecommunication infrastructure, IT infrastructure, because they depend from each other, but they are not the same, but of course they depend from each other, and also from the perspective of industry and innovation. Again, I cannot speak individually for each of these ecosystem and field of application, because each of them would require one day just to address the issues, the challenges, and the frameworks. I have a list down here on a piece of paper of all the policies and frameworks that have been introduced just in the last 5-10 years, but I will not list them, otherwise it will come in one ear and go out from the other one. But in terms of challenges, because I like always to see the challenge, when we see the challenge, we understand where we can move forward. In terms of challenges, it's always about, I think it started always about money, right? If you don't have money, if you don't invest money, you cannot attract the talent, you cannot retain the talent. So the problems that I have been seeing in the past 6 years that I have been in Cambodia, at the end, like always, they revolve around money. What does it mean? Let's take, for example, universities. As Dr. Upalat before mentioned, he said one problem that is very common is university tend to think in academia, so with an academic mindset. And they think that we need to prepare students in one way. When students go to the private sector, to the company, so they approach the job market, what they see is something that is very different from the academic settings. So there is this kind of a mismatch between what university do and what the job market requires. This is very true also in the Cambodian ecosystem. So from one side, we see university doing their thing, with this kind of mindset that, okay, we do this because we believe that is good. And then we have the other side, which is the private sector, the job market, where they would like students to come there and be ready and to be a talent and to be able to jump in as fresh graduates and solve the problem, and at the meantime also pay them less. because they are fresh graduate. So there is this kind of attitude where everyone would want to be correct, everyone know better, and everyone think in their own tank, in their own field, without matching what they are doing with what the others needs. So this is, you know, the triple helix model: government, industry, university. It seems so easy to say, it's so complicated to make it happen in a proper manner. In the recent past, the Ministry of Education have initiated, for example, activities and have lay out policies and also frameworks to make sure that universities, for example, need to undergo a process of accreditation. This process of accreditation needs to have a curriculum updated, instructors that are qualified and produce research. Why research? Because in this way, we guarantee that the professors themselves are updated. Also, hands-on practice, internship, so to make sure that the students, while they are studying, they also can get experience in the job market. So that you don't wait until the moment you have the degree in your hand for starting to think about the job. But actually, you should learn from the problem from the companies, bring them back to the university, and connect to what you are learning in the university to solve the problem that you face in the companies. This can be done with structured internship programs that can lead to projects that can be implemented. So the projects that come from the industry, but they are solved in the university settings. This, what I'm saying, is nothing new. In some country in the world, they are implemented in a proper manner. For example, you can see in some country in Europe, in some country in US, for example, also in Japan, they have been connecting, you know, the private sector, so the job market, with the university. Not always it has been effective, but surely in developing countries like Cambodia that are moving fast, but they are facing this issue. So one of the main goals that the Cambodian government has placed is trying to make sure that there is a better alignment between university and the job market. This can be done both from the government perspective, pushing down policies that can support this, subsidizing specific internship projects, or supporting companies that try to attract young talents and also increase their salary, because you need to give them experience but also attract them, otherwise they will go abroad to another country. Another problem of Cambodia. So again, it's very complicated, this topic. I could stay here talking about millions of challenges, millions of feedback that we have received, things that we are learning, things that have been done, talking about other implementation and other projects that have been done from other countries. But the reality is that, in short, as a conclusion, because I think I'm reaching my 10 minutes, we need to consider one thing. First of all, every solution is not a perfect solution. Number two, when we talk about a developing country like Cambodia, we cannot just look to other countries like Japan, Italy, or US and expect to implement that into the Cambodian ecosystem, because it doesn't work. Number three, we need to consider to the cultural ecosystem, because, for example, in Cambodia, problem is that students don't want to, you know, for example, the vocational training. Vocational training is seen as for people that are not smart. And that's a problem. So everyone wants to go to university, but many times we are lacking the people that have more vocational training. So all this aspect, financial aspect, economic aspect, cultural aspect, needed to be considered and accounted for when we do policy. And I conclude with this. A person that is very experienced in policy making said one thing. Whenever we come out with policies, we need to consider one thing. They need to be very clear and very on very specific, because one of the best way to make policymaker discard your proposal, discard your policy or your policy proposal, your policy brief, is to make it generic and to make a policy brief that doesn't account for what has been done before. So that is a very good feedback. I like always to share, because here we are talking to young people. The outcome of this conference is also to create policies applicable to each country. So whenever we come out with policies, we need always to consider the ecosystem we are working in and also what has been done before, and be very, very specific. So with this, I finish my 10 minutes, but I hope that I gave you a quick insight about Cambodia, mostly some question that I sparkle in your mind. So a curiosity and a way of thinking deeper to your specific ecosystem and how and what we can do and you can do for your specific environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ricardo. So that is context, clarity, and specificity when creating policies. I'll get back to you later on what you pointed at a while ago, that there is oftentimes this missing synergy between what industry really needs and what our educational institutions are providing to our young people. But let me just go back to Upalat. In your presentation, you mentioned two keywords: vulnerability and uncertainty. So the last few years, the world has undergone massive amounts of shocks, the pandemic and increasing geopolitical tensions among two of them, and these have overturned labor markets. You also mentioned briefly about resilience. So what does a labor force that is resilient to shocks, economic, technological, political, look like for you?
Thank you very much, Chris. Actually, I was thinking to ask our audience, like, what are the 3 keywords? Because I want to have some interaction with them. But anyway, like, 3 keywords is uncertainty, vulnerability, and resilience. I asked Chris just remind you. So from these 3 keywords, like, can anyone tell me, like, how can we prepare ourselves for this, like, vulnerable situation or, like, uncertainty that we are live in? Just like quick thought. Yeah. Just try to wake you up a bit.
Yeah. Anyone ready for some interactive discussion? Our professor is asking you now.
Yes,
please.
Gentlemen.
Can you give the guy in pink a mic, please?
Okay, thank you very much.
Hello, good day. My name is Saul Pilario from the Philippines. So for me, the best aspect for us to become most prepared in this context when we're talking about is research. We all have a lot of ideals. We all have a lot of beliefs that can be radical in nature. But if we don't have any we don't have any practical information, we don't have any peer-reviewed details on what exactly we're trying to deal with, we won't have context. We won't have clarity. And with that, it's really hard for us to grapple with the complex problems that we face if we don't have solid facts. That's what I believe.
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe another person? Okay, just to...
Alex, I see your hand rising.
Yes, thank you. Can everyone hear me? All right, my name is Alexander, and I'm from Germany. And I think a really important factor is fluidity and dynamics. So with ever-changing environment comes a changing factor. So I think a lot of us have become comfortable with institutions, with bureaucracies that are very static. And especially developing economies and countries have had those since the 1950s, 1960s, especially from Germany and Japan. We like to stick to things the way they've done over and over again. So the idea would be to break free from this static framework and be able to be more fluid, dynamic, and creative in addressing these challenges. And I think that starts in the education system, which also ties into Sol's comment on research. So the teaching and thinking and the way we think has to be more able to adapt to changing environments. And I think from there we can start to discuss resilience and the outcomes.
Okay, thank you very much for both of you. Like, at least you wake up a little bit. So there is no right or wrong answer, and I do agree with both of you. From my point of view, like when we talk about this uncertainty or resilience, I think like as a person, as an individual, we have to prepare for this by being a fast learner, right? Because we don't know what will be in the future. So that's why we have to be able to adopt or adapt like in the new environment, like in the fast way. So fast learning, fast adapting, and then like we have to adopt this kind of philosophy of lifelong learning, because we have to improve ourselves like every time, right? Like every day. So our next day, like tomorrow, us should be better than today us, right? So we have to keep learning. So this the three keywords that I want to give you again, like for this, fast changing or uncertainty, like we should be able to learn fast, adapt fast, and then we have to adopt this philosophy of lifelong learning. And when we talk about the labor market, I think like if you can be either generalist who can apply like many, like science or like social science together, then you can you can survive in the labor market in the like next 5 or 10 years. And of course, like experts, they are still there. And I think if you can be can be expert in one thing, then you can also survive in the labor market as well. So the key is that like you have to have like some skills that technologies cannot replace. So this is what Ricardo was talking, and then what Adler was talking about the technology and AI. So we have to be able to adopt this kind of technologies and then use in our life or our work to be able to produce our work more efficiently and effectively. So skills that I was talking about, like maybe you can just think about like interpersonal skills, analytical skill, active learning, creativity, critical thinking, complex problem solving, leadership, and social influence. Like when I was young, like there was no word like influencer. There was no job called influencers when I was teenager or when I was at your age. But now there is a word, or there is a job called influencer. So you can imagine that this become very important in our life now. Like you can make good or bad things by become influencer, right? So you can influence people like things, like how they think or how their thoughts, like or their philosophy, like how they can work in the labor market and so on. And again, like about the technology adoption and design, this is also important in the future. And the last but not least is the emotional intelligence. Because nowadays, like you can see that there are many statistics show that like people have like mental illness or they have like too much stress when they work. So you have to be able to deal with your stress or your emotion, like when you have to lead someone, you have to lead your team, then you have to understand other people's emotions, and then how can you influence them in a positive way, or how can you empathize with them, like whether, okay, so maybe you can think about this generation gap as well, because you are Gen Z, I do believe, and you have to work with other gen, right? Baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, and then we have to really have this mutual understanding, and then have to really control our emotional intelligence as well. And if you want to become an expert, you have to know like what kind of fields that are in high demand, right? You don't want to be expert in the fields that no one really care anymore. So maybe you can just start thinking about like AI, machine learning, climate change, renewable energies, financial engineering, or some like other natural sciences that I'm not really an expert in. So maybe you can just think about like biological or something like that. Yeah, so if you want to be expert, you have to know the trends in the market. Like you cannot just become any expert. Of course, like if you want, it's fine. Like it's for your pleasure, your enjoyment. But again, everyone needs something to eat. You need to make money to live your life. So that's why you have to know like what is in high demand. So this is just like my comment in short. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Upalat. So, as an aging millennial that is straddling between a generalist and some form of expertise, it's good to know that you can upskill by being adaptable, flexible, learning emotional intelligence, and just have that constant skill or that constant drive to learn new skills as you go along. So I'm interested to hear from Adler what ZA Share is actually doing. You said that this agency is actually engaging in educational experimentation and innovation. So how are you trying to equip young people and how are you preparing them for jobs that don't even exist yet?
Thanks, Chris. I think this is a important question, but hard to answer. And I also like to engage you a little bit that I want those of you who have read some kind of job forecast 10 years ago, please raise your hand. Maybe by Economist or World Bank or by a government. Okay, can you raise your hand higher? Okay, now 10 years later, if you think that these forecasts, 95% turn out to be truths, please raise your hand. Okay, so I think here's an important point here that the error in these forecasts, let's say it's even just 5% of error, will be the people who are left behind in the job market, or just like what Ablat just said, the lost generation. So at ZaShare, what is very important is that why we say ZaShare. In Chinese, it's called ZaXue, but in English, it means from share from Z to one, basically upending your imagination. Always, in Chinese, we say 打破砂锅问到底, or in English, I would say that you always go down, deep down to your imagination and deep down to see what are the underlying conditions of all things, what are behind the surfaces. So also coming back to this, why I say, coming back to my first comment that why this, it's important to ask but difficult to answer is because that whenever, at the moment that I provide an exact answer, oftentimes it already become outdated or it is inaccurate in some sense. So, and why is this the case? So for example, I can provide an example in Taiwan. So around 20 years ago, there was huge policy in promoting biotech as an industry, and there was huge investments in biotech. However, 10 years later, these doctorates, they turn out to be, many of them become jobless or turn out to work in irrelevant markets. So the reason why this happens, why these forecasts often fail, is because as complex systems theory tell us that our society is nonlinear. So we cannot linearly think ahead. And in order to face like the uncertainty and build resilience, as Abla just said, we have to recontextualize what the situation or the surface phenomenon we see and look under the underlying conditions of things. So by looking under, so to answer the question of future-proofing our employment, I think we have to come back to look at what employment is. And we can, if we look historically, we can see that the concept of universal employment is actually a relatively new concept. So by saying employment, I mean that, I mean somebody paying you in exchange for your labor. So pre-agricultural times, we were basically hunter-gatherers. There was no employment. You get the food and feed yourself. And during pre-industrial times, most of the people are peasants or farmers. So it wasn't also the employment in today's sense, as you, your family, your village are able to attend to your shared survival needs. Or put it more simply, you basically just feed yourself most of the time by yourselves. And once industrialization happens, while it provides a lot of progress in society, but at the same time, it deprives many peoples from the material and social conditions to sustain their lives through their direct participation in the ecosystem's metabolism. So basically, it means that many people are no longer able to feed themselves directly. You need to do that indirectly through employment. So I'm not saying that the time in the past are the good old times, but I'm just showing that these are some crucial hints to why 100 years ago, people in the South may be able to live a livable life without much money. However, many of them nowadays even struggle to make their most basic ends, like getting clean water and so on. So when we put employment back into the social historical context, it can help us understand this question more holistically. So what is the purpose of jobs? What are the social conditions that demand us to be employed? So basically, I would say that it is to make a living while contributing to the functioning of society. Or more ideally, we can say that it is to live a flourishing life while contributing the flourishing of all. In other words, employment basically is a way to sustain our lives and others through interdependence, and ideally in a healthy way. So the fundamental aspect of future-proofing our job or career is to achieve what I just said, to live independently with others in a sustainable or healthy way. So jobs and careers, as we know today, are only some manifestations of such interdependence. And if we look at, so it is, as it's just a way, we can know that there are other ways to form such interdependence or mutual flourishing. And getting paid by fiat money is only one of the forms. In ancient China, for example, oftentimes the salary that government officials receive are actually grains. And the farmers or peasants, they feed themselves by their own labor, their harvests, and they tribute their harvests to the government for infrastructure, for example, like building canals, for defense, and for redistribution. Exchange of goods and services actually oftentimes occur when there is surplus. And such form of interdependence, which is like without, in other words, like without universal employment, lasts for around 3,000 years. Also, I'm not saying that this is better than today, but I'm just saying that there are many other viable forms of making a living. So the problem, the huge challenge that we face today, as we are discussing today, is that while such interdependence can take many forms, or we can say that there are many kinds of capitals, more than economic capitals. For example, like we know there are at least cultural capital, social capital, symbolic capital, and more others. However, the pressing issue we face today is that we reduce all kinds of interdependence into, or all kinds of social relations, all kinds of capital into an economic one, into economic capital and economic transactions. So from engineering or from network theory, we know that if too many things depend on only one kind of thing, then the system becomes very fragile. Because as long as the thing that is being dependent on is broken or dysfunctional, the whole system becomes dysfunctional. This is how unemployment becomes a huge problem, because most of us today are unable to live without money. Most of us are unable to maintain healthy social relationships without transaction. So in the future, looking in the future to have a future-proof job, or to recontextualize it, or reframe the question, to future-proof our ways of making a living, there are existing attempts, for example, gift economy, or time-based currencies, or cryptos, and many other things. They have their advantages, disadvantages, but these are some attempts for us to imagine, to design, and to actualize. And I think for future leaders, it's important to not only think in terms of jobs, but in social relationships, in different forms of capitals. And I think I'll talk a little bit more later in education, what we can do. I'll call it learning by caring. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adler. So, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that our institutions, at least the modern ones, are very defective. Among these, there are a large number of unequal opportunities. Not everybody is able to get the same quality of jobs that would afford us a decent life. And you're saying that maybe in order to reform these institutions and to make sure that it works for everyone, this means that we get equitable education, we get to live decent lives with decent salaries. We may need to critically think if we are to reform all of these institutions. So I would like to go to Ricardo and discuss what are the new systems of education and training could possibly help young people and future workers unlock this creativity and critical thinking together with all of these developments in technology and automation. And how can universities adopt to these types of transformations? What does, here am I again with these keywords, a future-proof education look like?
So in general, I think that to also follow up on what the other two speakers mentioned is nowadays to make sure that students that become then people that need to find employment can be how to say, attractive, sexy for the job market, so that they can get a good employment, good salaries, and good opportunities. We need to consider a few points that are very important. And actually, when I was younger, I would have liked to know that. Because it would have helped me a lot in taking this decision. And connecting to that, I will also answer, of course, your question, because they are connected. One side is what the people, so the youth, should consider. So one point of view from the youth, from the people that are studying or have finished to study and then are approaching the job market. From the other side is the aspect of what government should do to support private sector and to create a better connection between youth and private sector. So I would say these keywords, just to be straight on the point. Number one is passion. So don't try to just find a job for finding a job, just for the salary itself, because it's something, it's like placing yourself in a situation where no matter what, you will hate what you are doing. The jobs are changing so fast, things are changing fast, the economy are changing fast, different situation, country, governments. So it's very important you to try to do something that you really have the passion for, because that will make the difference. If you work on something that you have curiosity and you do beyond what you are paid for, then you will really have a pleasant journey. Even in hard times, you will kind of feel good about it because you are doing what you like, you are doing what you have passion for. So number one is try to always study, learn, and also practice the skills that you have passion for. Number two is be agile. I come from engineering field. but I work also a lot with the software developers, and the concept is in the software development industry, they always use in project management the concept of agile. Why? Because you have different, I will not bore you with all the project management frameworks, but the concept is in the past, usually you kind of create a long-term plan, and you were using this waterfall approach where step after the other one, you were going from the start to the end. But the problem is nowadays things are changing too fast. The pace of how things, demands, requests, technology is changing, demand you to be agile, demand you to be flexible in adapting yourself, in reskilling yourself, and in constantly learn new things. And this is also connected to what Upala said before. He said continuous learning, lifelong learning. This seems just a word by itself, but actually it's what is really in demand nowadays. Once you finish university, you didn't finish to study. You are just starting to really learn things for the job market. So continue to learn always. Third thing that is essential, connected to the passion and to be flexible, to be agile, is strategic alignment. This is a very important word in the business ecosystem, in the business settings. Every company is trying to be as much as possible to strategically align its goals. So what does it mean? You may have a passion for something, but if there is no demand for that job in your country, then you will end up having no job offers, and you will need to go to work somewhere else. Like one of the speakers mentioned before, that in the past there was a lot of people studying something, and then they end up doing something different because there was not job requests, there were not job offering, or the salary were not good. So it's very important you to understand, yes, follow your passion, but also look what is in demand and is forecasted with all the errors that can be embedded in a forecast, but what is forecasted to be in your country. Now, how can you forecast in a proper manner what job will be in the near future? Number one, of course, follow the different companies that do this forecast. Number two, look at the frameworks that the government and the ministry do in the country you want to be. So for example, let's say that you are in Thailand, and you want to work in Thailand, you want to stay in Thailand because of your family. Look what the different ministries, the different frameworks that the ministry send out. Because usually when a ministry send out a framework, they point out clearly what will be the major goals and the major focus in that next 5, 10, 20 years. That means that all the funds coming from the government will go toward that direction. When there is money, private sector will work toward that. So, and if the private sector work toward that, that means that there will be jobs demand, which means you will have opportunity to work. So be very strategic in aligning your passion with the job market and the frameworks that the government of the country where you want to be is sending out, is creating, because that will allow you to be very aligned between passion and job demands. And fourth point that I want to clarify is be strong, grit. So that means that don't expect that after 1 year you study something and you work in a field, you will be an expert and you want to be paid a lot. You know, this is also something that I kind of see in the youth of today, also in Cambodia, is people work in 1 year in a company and they feel like they are expert, and then they start to demand a lot. Now, from one point of view, it's true. Companies, want to use the people many times, and they don't create a learning journey, learning path, career pathway. They don't pay enough that is also a problem of salary, which is one of the major concerns in Cambodia. But the second point is you need to consider that what you will get from the private sector in terms of salaries is commiserate, is depending a lot on what you can contribute to the company. So try to learn all the time, try to not complain, trying to be grounded, and always try to strive for learning more. Lifelong journey that will open a lot of doors in your future. So again, passion, follow your passion, be agile, but also be very strategic in how you are aligning your passion with the job market in the country where you want to be. And then grit. Don't think that you will not fail. Don't think that maybe you will be fired. Don't think that you will not change a job, and keep learning and updating yourself. And finally, to answer specifically to the question that you, Chris, asked me before, is what kind of plans or projects we can, or a country can follow up. Well, this is not new. One thing that is very good is for universities, because universities are the ones that are preparing the youth for the job market. But also school, but like high school, but let me focus mainly on university or higher education institution in general, is to create a learning journey during the 3 or 4 years of bachelor degree, depending from the country. During that bachelor program is to embed constantly theories with practice and with industry certification. Let me give you an example from the IT sector. If, for example, you just study about artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing, but you just study per step, then when you go to the industry sector or cybersecurity, now everyone talking about cybersecurity, when you study just these fields, you don't really gain much in terms of attractiveness, in terms of being sexy for the job market. What the companies needs is industry certification. So if you want to be in networking, certify yourself with companies like Cisco. I don't care now for Cisco, you can go wherever you want, but certification, if you go with cloud computing, you will go with the companies that work in the cloud sector, because you have real skills that can be employable right away and that can really make the difference for the job market. So don't just think, okay, I study in university, so people needed to give me a job. No, start to look at what really companies need. Remember, strategic in the goal alignment, and prepare yourself for that. That will really give an advantage when you go to the job market. So be humble, grit, follow your passion, but be smart in strategically align the goal, the passion, and the job demands in the country where you want to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ricardo.
A series of questions that I wanted to ask to our panelists, but it seems that we are running out of time. So I would now like to open the floor to any questions that our audience, both online and in the conference room, may have for our panelists. So for our online audience, we will be using Slido to collect your questions. So please use the code displayed in the chat box that our organizing team will put in, and it should direct you to the Slido page where you can ask your questions. So using this Slido, you can also upvote questions that you like or you may find interesting. But for members who are here, or for participants who are here in the conference room, please kindly introduce yourself and then go ahead with your question. I will collect about 2 to 3 questions and then hand these over to our speakers to answer. So now the floor is, oh my God, I like this. A lot of hands already raised. Let's start with the gentleman in a white polo at the back, and then I'll go to the, next, at the back of Alex. And then I will go to the lady who is wearing black, yes. And then maybe you, sir.
right at the back of Rabea. Okay, 3 questions first, and then our speakers will answer. Do you have a microphone? Yeah, you can ask now.
Hello. Oh, so my name is Dominic Wong. This question is specifically for Mr. Young. First of all, I really appreciated your critical and Bourdieuian input in the session, in a session with such a heavy neoliberal undertones. So my question is, would you agree that in order to sustain healthy interdependence within an economy, or what Bourdieu will call the social field, a society must undergo significant reform or redistribution of capitals and as well as reform within an ideological structure? Specifically, this is targeting the global south or any post-colonial states. And moreover, if you answer yes to that question, I just want to ask, is that even possible under a neoliberal free market economy? And is that even possible to do that without resorting to state capitalism?
Okay, thank you very much, Alan, for that very philosophical question, challenging our neoliberal systems of power. Okay, yes, ma'am?
Can everyone hear me? Yes. Oh, it's nice. So, hello everyone. So, my name is Cindy, and I'm from Vietnam. So, I'm really thankful for our speaker today. But I think this question I would go to Ricardo, and I really want to appreciate that. I think it's at around 5:30 in Italy, and you should be here with us in the morning. It's really appreciate that. So, I really like when you talk about the academia mindset and the private sector mindset, and I've had a question like university, they usually have postgraduate surveys for the alumni student to talk about their employment status after they graduate. So usually they should focus on the figures, like how many percentage of the student will be employed after they graduate, but they not really deep inside, like what kind of major that the work they pursue after they first graduate. Is that the same with a major they stick at the university bachelor usually? So would you like to give some thoughts on this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that question was addressed to Ricardo, and she is asking if universities can dig deeper into postgraduate surveys that they usually do, instead of just like looking at the figures, how many students have graduated and have successfully entered the job market, correct? Yes. Okay, last question, you sir? Yes.
So hi, my name is Mohammed Harris. I'm from Thailand. So I would like to ask, so since you were mentioned about like job market, and then many people have a perception about like a market in this big city or like the capital city. So I would like to ask about the question is like how we can localize or like distribute the job opportunity into the local area and to be fit with their conditions of both their family and financial conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Harris. So I think that was for Upalat, right? How can you distribute development away from urban centers and look at job opportunities at maybe suburban or in rural areas, right? Okay,
Thank you.
So we start with a very philosophical question addressed to Adler, looking at how we can upend the current capitalistic neoliberal economy. Yeah.
Thank you for your question. So I see that traditional left or traditional Marxist approaches very good at providing anatomies of social problems. However, since we do not live independent of society, we are situated in the society. So knowing the anatomies and with an implication of doing surgeries so far as we have seen in history is very difficult, if not often leading to failure. So I think your question was very sharp, and I'm not saying this is the solution, but my current approaches to such a dilemma or difficult challenge is to seek resources from complex system theory, as I just mentioned, or in social sciences. There's a relatively new philosophy of science called critical realism. So these approaches, instead of viewing the social more in a more static anatomy, it tries to see, as I mentioned earlier as well, try to see what are the underlying conditions that lead to what they call emergence of, for example, social structures, social relationships. And by saying redistributive or state capitalism, I think these kind of thinking still are still quite influenced by an anatomy way of thinking. And my current attempts, and among other researchers nowadays, by tapping into the resource of complex system theory, critical realism, or emergentism, I try to look into, for example, like what I just mentioned, learning by caring is something that you don't need to change the government, and you can do right now. So my research and my documentary shows that basically it was a natural experiment on alternative school students that shows, despite we have already eliminated many credentialism factors, many hypotheses, or I mean like factors attributed to credentialism or hyper competition in education. Despite these factors, common attributed factors such as family values, I mean not the family values in that sense. I mean the families held by families, parents, teachers, the ideological Confucianism, or the structural like the advantages of higher educational attainments. So these factors are all being alleviated in some sense. However, in an alternative learner-centered education school, students still voluntarily participate in a hyper or competitive culture. And why is that the case? I found that it is because they perceive themselves to be dependent upon resource allocation. I call this allocation dependence. I'm writing a few papers on this. So by learning by caring is the idea that instead of meeting these allocation criteria, for example, in education, meeting these test marks in order to get into a better school, getting A+ or getting distinctions at school in order to get to a good company. You start by doing something that you care about the society. So for example, it can be simple as the wasted resources in your community. It can be that somebody is being bullied in your circle. You start from caring, and then once you start caring, you know that your deficiencies, and you have to learn something new. And in order to achieve what you care, you start to learn, you start to do, you start to make trials and errors, and then through that process, it's embedded in the social. So you get feedbacks from others, and feedback itself is learning. So the feedback, whether it's, for example, like feedback on how well you're doing, or it can be, for example, it's building your reputation, or it is giving you social ties. These are all different kinds of resources that originally you wanted, and that was the reason that you want to pursue a good, good brand, like a good university brand or a good company, because you want these resources. However, these resources are not only in those places, but regenerable by your action from now. So this is an example. Of course, I can continue, but this is an example and inspired by emergentism paradigm in the more later development of social sciences. And I hope this might provide some hint to your question.
Thank you, Adler. So that's dig deeper into complex structures theory and critical realism. So now can I ask Ricardo about this question and going beyond simple statistics, graduation, number of people who graduated and who entered into the labor force. How can universities be more effective in digging deeper?
Okay, this is actually a very simple, straightforward question, but under it there is a lot of points that should be discussed and a lot of sides or phases of this reality that we could look at. But first, let me tell you, yes, it's very early in the morning, but waking up early in the morning, let me indulge in coffee. So I have an excuse to drink a lot of coffee, which I love. Anyway, with this said, first of all, I would like to say this. When we collect data, when we collect statistics, or university, I remember the university that I studied, they all ask surveys after graduation survey, employment survey, and all this kind of stuff. But the point is, whenever we talk about data science, so when we use, for example, in business, they call business intelligence, but it can be data analytics, data analysis. The main point, the first point is the results and the outcomes, so the findings that you get are as good as the data you collect. So what does it mean? If you collected the wrong data, your outcome or your findings will be wrong if the data are not good, or they will be biased or skewed toward one thing or another one based on which data you are collecting and which question you are asking. Many times these surveys are very generic and they don't really dive deeper into why things are as they are. They just look how much time did it take for you to find an employment. They don't even ask the salaries. Then it depends, because I know a lot of students that answer to this survey just for the sake of answering. So if that is the case, you get data which are not true. I always, there is a lot also of discussion on is it, for example, the surveys to consider the quality of a course and how good an instructor is for the students. Is it that enough to say if an instructor is good and is doing a good job or not? And the findings show that it's not. So it's very important to understand that the process that university do for collecting data many times are not really effective or followed. And then I also looking from behind the curtains, having worked in a university setting for a few years now, not always university really follow up with that, which means yes, they consider, but sometimes they say, yeah, we know that, but we don't have the money to change, we don't have the funds to change. If you recall what I said before in one of the thing that I said is funding. You always have a problem of money. Wherever you go, it's always a problem of money. You may say, hey, but we should prepare the students to be more ready for the job market. But do you have or do you pay enough your instructors for attracting talents? Do you have enough laboratories in your facilities to allow the students to prepare themselves to be ready for the industry? Do you have enough human resources that are qualified to conduct the project that would make the difference? Do you have enough resources to conduct proper research, data collection and data analysis that would allow your business intelligence team to drive the decision making of a university. And then also we should distinguish private university from public universities. Nowadays there is a trend in academia where universities are transforming more and more into businesses. So they are not anymore like the older way of doing academia, but now they need to sustain themselves. They need to find money themselves. And sometimes this has led universities to just propose, propose programs just because they sound sexy rather than because they are important. And I give you an example, very, very straightforward. Many times now you will find bachelor degree in artificial intelligence. It doesn't make much sense. Artificial intelligence is very high in skills. So if you really wanted to be an expert in artificial intelligence, a bachelor degree is not enough, sorry. You need to have a lot of practice, maybe 10 years of practice. If you go in developing countries and you say, I have a bachelor degree in artificial intelligence, they will say, so what? I need people that have experience, at least 30 years experience in this. What you have done, show me your portfolio, show me your projects. So they say bachelor degree in artificial intelligence just because sounds good, marketing. So coming back to your question is what university could do or how useful are these survey, these projects. They are useful, but sometimes it's not enough. And what university could do is, again, coming back to the point that I made before, is making sure that you can give real experience to students. You don't need to give courses just for the sake of giving credits. You need to create learning experiences and practical experiences that can connect the students with the job market, with companies, creating programs for internship, creating programs where students can, for example, go to work and earn credits for the university. So strategically align what the job market needs with what the university do. Universities are nothing without job market. Job market are nothing is nothing without university. They need to work together. And this cooperation, many times, more rather than less, is forgotten. So that is what is, for me, is very important, is seeing university cooperating more and more with the job market. This is something that, seems obvious, but it's not at all. So that is where the cooperation between the two needs to really work better. And government, which is the third part, so public sector, which is the third party, need to stay in the middle, facilitating this, facilitating with policy making, with program for subsidizing specific education, for example, supporting companies that allow university to conduct the internship program with them, supporting companies that invest in youth, invest in young people, also in the right job skills and training them in the right skill set. So that is the cooperation allows really the university to do a better job, cooperation. I hope that I answered your point, but I know it's a very complicated question, which would require a longer answer, but I hope at least I give you some insights.
So you gave very specific policy recommendations. First, the university.
Very specific and disaggregated questions that would actually give more insights to how their graduates are doing in the job market. And you also said that we need to improve public financing for universities, especially state-funded ones. So yeah, Upalat, next question goes to you. How do we deconcentrate development?
Thank you very much. It's very simple, very difficult to answer. It's very challenging anyway. Even developed country like Japan, is also facing this problem where we see kind of like ghost town, like in rural areas, because like no people live there anymore, or only like old people live there, and then they don't really work anymore. So they just live their life on the pension. So if there is no demand, then create one, right? So if there is no demand of people or like companies who want to relocate to the rural areas, then the government has to create one. So first, maybe the government can just give like incentives for reallocation support. Like for example, if family they want to reallocate to the rural area, then maybe we give incentives for like child caring services, or maybe free education, or maybe some kind of package that we can give some incentives to people to move away from the big city. And surprisingly, like after the COVID-19 pandemic, like we see a big shift in people preference. So many of my friends, like they just move away like from Tokyo and then stay in Yokohama, Kamakura, or somewhere around Tokyo, because they don't really have to work in the office anymore, and then they enjoy living like with the nature. So this big shift in the way that people work also can be one of the driver that can distribute this kind of development to the rural area as well. And the next one, the government can have this resource distribution. So actually, I was assigned to talk about this like equitable retraining or upskill programs, but because of the time constraints, so I didn't have time to talk about this. But the government can also support, like in terms of retaining or like upskill programs in the rural area, so they can upskill people in that area. Like even you are farmers, then you need to know about AI or about like machine learning, because you need some technologies to produce more products in order to sell in the market, or produce better quality of fruits or vegetables like to sell in the market. So you need to understand the ongoing technology. And the third point is the structural transformation of the labor market, which is linked to the preference of people nowadays. So flexible work incentive, like maybe the government can give to the private sector, and then like in form of the tax reduction, like if you implement like flexible work hours or flexible work like location, then people can start thinking about their life, and then they can move outside of the big city. Or incentives to like reallocate like office or like plants to different areas of the countries. That can be another solution. And the last but not least, like everything cannot be possible without technology. So we could see this kind of like digital divide, like from this like pandemic. Like it's kind of like accelerator to see this divide. Like it was there, but we didn't see. But when the time comes, then we saw this is the big problem, because there are many of students, many of workers that cannot have access to the internet, or they don't even have access to the equipment, like in order to work like for their life. So I think this support, like in terms of technological support or like technological infrastructure in the rural areas, are also very important in order to redistribute these people, like migration from big city to back to the rural areas. So I think that's my short answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Upalat. I know that we are running out of time, but since I only took questions from this side, please indulge me to ask this side some questions, at least two more. Yes? You please? You with the eyeglasses. Yes. Yes, and then who's the other one? Yes. Yes. Please go ahead first. Yeah, and then you.
Yes, thank you so much for your sharing. My name is Erin.
Okay, sure. Thank you for your sharing. My name is Thủy. I'm from Vietnam. Thank you for your sharing about AI and the AI place in the future of work. I would like to ask about the incentives or policy that are upcoming in not only Taiwan but others country in the region that you may like get to know, like for I think AI has like both positive and negative impact in the workforce in the future. And in your opinion, what is the way like Jews can utilize and harness their background in technology to apply into their work to enhancing their productivity and effectiveness and like make the work better? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Can we go to the next question at the back, please? I assume that your question is addressed to Upala? Okay. Yes, please.
Hello? Yes. Hello, thank you so much for your sharing. My name is Ern. I'm from Thailand. I have two main questions that I would like to address. First question, maybe to Ricardo. Yeah, I really agree. I absolutely agree with you about like now you need to start prepare their skills, start like do internship work a bit earlier, and that's why there are a lot of people start to do intern when they are young, like third year, fourth years. And however, recently I have talked with some of my junior, and I found that many of them start their intern pretty early, like first year, second years, and I asked why, and then what they share is that because everyone start to want to have experience when they are really young, and the job market itself, the company also required you to have an experience, even though you haven't graduated, and I can see that it might be decreasing. How to say? There will be more and more in terms of age range of people start working. It could be like you are high school, you start working. So I'm not sure about like, would this lead to any other issue in terms of mental health in the youth and also the market, how it's competitive more and more. Yeah, and my second question would be about addressed to Kun Upalai. Yeah, yes, I would say this more like a situation in Thai society, because currently there are a lot of talent that are start to move out of the country and work somewhere else. Yeah, we call like there's situation called brain drains. Yeah, many talented skill are moved out. I feel that the country itself not really have like a hope, like or hopeless kind of that. So I'm not sure whether is there any way government or anyone who have the authority could do in order to attract the talent, yeah, to work or stay in the country, yeah, or any of this to support this point. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for those very interesting questions. So let's start with a question from Tui. So how do we integrate AI in our daily work to increase productivity? What should be the incentives for that?
Thank you very much. So I think this is it really depends on what kind of jobs that you are pursuing. So you have to understand like the nature of your industry first, and then what kind of technologies are there. Like for example, in my field, like I'm in university, and now like all students use like ChatGPT. So I have to understand the nature of this, like program, like what is ChatGPT, and then how can this enhance my students' performance in my class. Like maybe, like in my class, I'm not opposing to this technology. I told my student, you can use ChatGPT as much as possible, but I can also detect when you use ChatGPT. So please just use it when you want to improve your writing, like when you want to check your flows, something like that. So basically, the bottom line is that you have to know your industry and what kind of technologies are out there, and then you have to familiarize yourselves with the technologies that also. Yeah. Want to add something? Okay,
Thank you, Upalot. So being around a lot of students, a lot more, makes you easy to distinguish the writing style from how ChatGPT writes. Okay, so next question is addressed to Ricardo. It seems that internships are getting more competitive, that the age of getting into internships are becoming younger and younger. So what are the impacts to this trend that we are recently seeing? How does this impact mental health? And it seems to be a chicken and egg problem, right? Companies want their applicants to have experience, but then these are just fresh graduates that may or may not have opportunities to undergo internships. So how do we address this?
So yeah, this is a good question. You know, I always, whenever when the question was asked to me, I would think about a meme that I saw time ago, where in a job application they were asking, you needed to be under 25, you needed to have 20 years experience, you need to have a bachelor degree, and following all these requests, there was a baby a few years old that was already in university, right? Because considering all this age, experience, and everything, it was too early. So the problem here is connected to what I mentioned before, and you're absolutely right. At this moment, the students see that. They see, because you know they live through that. They understand that if they wanted to be really appealing, they really wanted to have chances for get a good job offer and for really be competitive whenever they finish university or any higher education institution, they realize they cannot have just a degree. They cannot have just a diploma. That's not enough. They need to have a skill set, and they need to have also some experience that prove that they know what they are doing in the field they are applying. So yes, this is happening with your friends, but it's also happening with my students. I see that students, you know, they are starting internship no more in year 4, but or whenever it's requested. For example, for us, we request between year 3 and year 4. But sometimes even in year 2, even in year 1, I have students going for internship, not for credits, but just for experience. And sometimes I think that this is the consequence of the misalignment between what university do and what company requires. Let me explain better. If companies require experience, require a period of time working in their companies, getting accustomed to their working processes, getting accustomed to what they need and learning the skill set that the company needs, is because many times the university do not provide that. So the university go their own way, creating their own courses, their own syllabi, their own learning experiences, which are detached from what company needs. And companies see that and they say, hey, you know, I like the fact that you get a degree, that you study the theory, that you develop your critical thinking skills, but I need you to be able to do this, and to do that, because I make money through that. So I need people able to do that, to make a difference for my own business. So that means that there is a not strategic alignment in place between what university do and what company needs. So what can be done is simply, again, align better what students learn in university with what companies requires. This can be done in embedding, so placing inside, adding practice and internship for credit with the degree pathway. So students, for example, learn and at the same time also work. This allows them to not only get the know-how, the skill set, but also really have practice from the industry sector. So if we are capable to align better this, then probably students will do practice, do internship as part of their learning process, as their learning journey, as their growth journey in the university. So again, a better alignment will solve this problem.
I was the product of this brain drain, actually. So I've been living in Japan for 14 years. So I was there for my graduate. And then I got my job there, and then I still living there. So the thing is that like I don't see the future of Thailand. So this is very honest answer like to all of you. And as you can see like from the news that like our election is not really going well, and so it's been like this since I left my country, and it has been 14 years and still the same. So I think like the political situation and also business environment is very important to attract like young talented people to come to the country. Not just come back, but like for other nationality as well, like to come to Thailand. And I think maybe Thailand can use kind of soft power, like in Japan, like because in Japan they give out this like scholarship called MEX scholarship, and also received their scholarship, so that's why I was able to study in Japan. And this kind of soft power, like they have like different programs like for cultural exchange or like academic exchange, and this can build my preference towards Japan. Like I want to do something to Japan, even though I'm not Japanese, but I got this scholarship, so I need to do something. And I think this kind of programs or like soft power can be one of the tools that the government can do, and it's kind of free actually. Like when you give out scholarship, it means that those students who got like scholarship from Thai government, they have to spend money in Thailand. So anyway, the money is still circulate in Thai economy, so we don't really lose money to outside countries. So it's kind of free and kind of effective like in many ways. So my short answer is that like political situation and business environment is very big issue, and actually this is just from my own like personal interpretation. Like when I ask my friends like why you still stay in Thailand, and the only reason that they told me is like because their family is there, and there are no other reasons that hold them back, like if there is no family like back in Thailand. But like I also have my family, but because my brother is there, so they can like he can take care of my parents, and then I go back like and forth like maybe 3 or 4 times a year, so that's why I still can see my family. But anyway, so political situation and business environment is very important to attract like young talented like youth like you.
Thank you, Palot. So even though most of us would be somewhat allergic to political talk or about any topics of political, involving politics in general, stable and working political structures that underpin a working economy is very important for job seekers. So I know that you still have a lot of questions, but we don't have time. Anyway, 2 out of our 3 speakers are staying for lunch. So for people who are here in the conference room, you can still interact with them. But thank you, everybody. Thank you to our online participants, and thank you to our participants here in the conference room for engaging in our panel, responding to the dynamic changes in the world of work in Asia. So we hope that you found the discussion interesting and insightful. And if you want to learn more about the work that we do, we encourage you to follow our social media channels, KAS and TAEF, and to check out our website for KAS, that's kas-japan.or.jp, and for TAEF, that's taef.org. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Coming back. Thank you, Dr. Corrado, Mr. Adler, Dr. Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung, for providing us with the diverse perspectives on the issue. Thank you, Ms. Perez, also for the great moderation. We appreciate also the active participation of the audience here. Now, yes, we are coming to the concluding part, and I would like to ask Dr. Alan Hao Yang, the Executive Director, Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, to give us the synthesis and concluding remarks.
Very good morning, although it's around noon. And I know you must be very hungry. So my concluding remark will be very brief. Once again, welcome to the conference of the Future of Work for Asian Youth. And also my special thanks goes to each of you for the very active engagement and also your contribution to the interaction session. The Future of Work project has been a joint effort and institutional collaboration between KAS and TAEF TAF since 2020. As stated by Chairman Xiao and Director Rebea earlier, the project aims to compare with country profiles on how to upskill the young workforces and to come up with policy recommendations to governments and stakeholders. And we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic seriously put the young workforce, especially the blue collar and also the young workforce in rural area, in difficult situation. Based on the joint efforts for the country profile investigation, we advocate, both KAS and TAEF advocate, the public-private people partnership is and will be the constructive framework for realizing a more healthier and adaptable environment for our young workforce in Asia. And this cross-sectoral partnership need to be championed in the post-pandemic era, which will lead to positive implication to regional as well as national political economy development. On behalf of Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, we are delighted to incorporate the Future of Work Conference into our signature 2023 CSAP Youth Camp. And I'm appreciative of the agreement made by KAS as well. Through the discussion and also the interaction session, the questions, comment, and also the interaction from you, all of you, enlightened us with the young voices which contribute constructively to put to the KAS and TAEF project and to the stakeholder as well as the speaker. And finally, I say I will be very brief. Finally, I would like to end my remark by thanking the effort made by colleagues from TAEF and KAS, Ms. Wen Yi-Ling, and also Jessie from TAEF, as well as Sakuya-san and Chris from Japan, all the way from Japan, for the thank you for joining me to thank our preparatory member for their contribution in the thoughtful arrangement, not only for this Future of Work session, but also for the CSAP Youth Camp in general. And I would also like to share my special thanks to the speakers with your enlightening remark and also very constructive leadership in touching up the key issue and also the key concern from different countries. Especially, I learned a lot from the perspective in Cambodia, which we are not that familiar with. And finally, I would like to thank all the participants in your capacity of the future leader of Asia, that is all of you. TAEF would be keen to continuing collaboration with KAS on next phase of Future of Work, and also look forward to jointly proceed the advocacy statement in the near future based on our joint effort. Definitely, your contribution and comment will be incorporated in our report and also in our recommendation. With that, I would like to conclude my remark and thank you for all of the contribution and also the comments. And then we can enjoy your lunchbox later.
Thank you, Dr. Yang. With this concluding remarks, we are coming to the end of the Future of Work conference. But before closing the session, I'd like you to take our survey, which takes just a few minutes. Okay, sorry, not on the screen. Yeah, you have the online survey feedback forms on your table, right? So please fill out. Feel free to list everything you liked. Feel free to list everything you didn't like about the conference. We will make use of your comments and improve our next events. So for online participants, I'm not sure if they are still there. We will also send an online feedback form, so please take part in the feedback form. Thank you very much. Okay, with this, I am concluding this conference. Lastly, a huge thank you to the speakers today, a huge thank you to the participants here and online, and another huge thank you to the supporting team we have here and there. I wish you all a nice work life and also for now a good lunchtime. Thank you.